Okay. I think what we'll do is, I'm learning with Reb Chaim already holding the second Mishnah of Dalet Amud Beis, the Makif and Nikif, which is a very fascinating sugya. And basically, the first sugya goes through the whole sugya of Hezekiah, the din of Kaisel. And maybe what we'll do here, we want to move forward a bit in the sugyas, but we'll just get a few points regarding the Chiyav Kaisel, Hezekiah, and a bit of the Taisvus of Lefichach. I think what we'll start with is the Taisvus of Lefichach. And Taisvus says that the din of the Mishnah is that since Shutfim Sharatzu Lasis Mechitza, B'chatza B'ainan Es HaKaisel Be'emtza, therefore, Lefichach, Im Nafal HaKaisel, then it belongs to both of them. Because as a result of the din of the Chiyuv to build the Kaisel, so then that generates the Shibud that they both have to build it. Bein L'lishna Kama, Bein L'lishna Basra, Taisha says. And according to the first Lashon, it's because we know that they were Hiknu Zelazeh, and the second Lashon is because of Hezekiah. So the kasha of all the Rishonim here is that you see that the Mishnah is basing the din that if the kaisel falls down, then they both have to be a shutfim in rebuilding the kaisel, and this is based on the fact that they were originally shutfim. Because even without that, by default, the din would be that they both would have to rebuild it. The avanim will belong to both of them, and also the makam achat says both. Since there is no chazis on either side of the wall, so then we have no way to determine that it belongs to one over the other, and therefore automatically it belongs to both of them. So yesterday when I was learning with Daniel, the sugya, this Taisvus, you made a mention of the fact, just a second, is there a requirement to put a chazis by a chatzah? We only know this in the Gemara later on, the Mishnah, and the Gemara explicitly deals with it regarding bika. But by a chatzah, we find no mention of such a thing. So what's the din? The Taisvus over here seems to say that there is a din of a chazis by a chatzah. So where does Taisvus get that from? Right? That's the question. Now, I looked into it a bit, and I saw that the Rosh in Siman Vav on our parak, he says that yes, there is a din of chazis on a chatzar as well. That's what he says. But the Rimigash and the Ramban, the early Rishonim, they say on the Gemara and Daf Dalid Amud Beis, when the Gemara discusses bika, the same Gemara that Taisus brings, yeah, where the Gemara says over there, let's just quote the Taisvus, so we'll see what we're talking about. The Gemara asked the question, because once the Mishnah says that when both of them have a chazis, so then it remains shel shneim. But if it's only one of them, then it belongs to one. The Gemara says, so why do we have to institute this takana to make a chazis on both sides? Let's not do either, and then automatically belongs to both of them. Now, and from that kasha, Taisvus deduces that if you have if we know the din is that that the one who's holding the avanim, he has a mechzakas on the wall and it belongs to him. If that's the case, so what's the Gemara's kasha? He needs to put a chazis. So in order to avoid a situation that if it falls into the other guy's field, that the other guy shouldn't say it's his. That's why he has to make a chazis. So you see from there, Taisvus deduces from there that if you have, there's no muchzakas on holding the avanim, and if the avanim fall in your rishus, it doesn't prove anything to the fact that it belongs to you. That's what Taisvus proves from there. And Ibazai, if so, then we revert to the klal that it belongs to both of them because we have no proof that it belongs to one over the other. The fact that it falls into my rishus is not a raya that it's mine. But I'll call upon him. So you see from there, from that Gemara, that the Gemara discusses that we have a chazis by a bika. But the Rimegash over there says that this chazis only applies to a bika, not to a chatzah. Because, and he says a svara as well, the Rimegash svara is, since you can force the person to build a wall, the Mishnah says you can force the person to build a kaisel. So if so, there's no svara to say that you built it on your own. In other words, we have an ongoing svara that says that one person, Reuven, can force Shimon to build a wall with him. So there's no reason to assume, to entertain the possibility that one built a kaisel and that in his own property. Why should we assume such a thing? It's against the logic of the situation that each one can force the other. And the haichacha, he says, the haichacha v'chazis is not better than the haichacha that they built it between themselves, that they built it b'shutfus. Since the svara dictates that one can force the other, so if we see a situation that the wall fell down and we don't know whether they built it together or not, so the fact that you have a chazis is not any better than the fact that they could have built it together, that they should have built it together, right? So he says it's not by a chatzar, it's not a good proof. The Rajba over there also, yes?
So meaning, so even if one person would put up a chazis, we would disregard it.
That's right. In the situation of a chatzah, we would disregard it, and it's not a proof because we have a stronger proof. The guy says, "What do you mean? You have a chazis? But of course, you could have forced me to build a wall with you. So this chazis is not a good enough raya. It's a raya when we have no takana of building a kaisel together. That's the Ramban. And the Rajba adds another point. He says the b'chatzah doesn't chazis can't work because practically it's more irrelevant because by a bika it's more open to the general public because people can see things around the bika. It's more open and more available. People don't have private tashmishim over there, and therefore people could take a look and peek and see if there's something interesting on the wall. We have one of the avanim have a specific color that dictates that it's built on his side, and then we'd be able to see if it was taken off. But by a chatzah, since you never know, the guy can build a chatzah, somebody can remove it. Nobody really knows what's going on there, so there's no feeling of a proof as much as you have by a bika. That's the Rajba's edition. So now let's go right now back to our Taisus. So did Taisus mean to say when Taisus says since there's no chazis, loy lazeh, does Taisus mean to say that by a chatzah we can a chazis is a proof against the shita of the Ramban? So maybe this is not so clear. Because now, all Taisus is saying now is without, Taisus is saying, it could be we'll have to go over to Hebrew now, because I think we have an addition here. Is that okay with you guys?
Sure.
Questions I can answer in English. Uzi Itanu? Hello? Uzi? בסדר? אז שוב פעם, אנחנו ראינו בטייסס נוקטים את המילים, כיוון שאין חוזס, אז לא לזה ולא לזה, משמע שבחצר מועיל חוזס. וזה כמו שכתוב בראש, אבל הרמב"ן אומר סברה שחוזס לא מועיל בחוצר, מסיבה פשוטה שבחוצר, הוא אומר שבחוצר יש לנו ראיה עדיפה מחוזס, כיוון שיכולת לקוף את השני לבנות יחד איתך. ולכן, גם אם יש לך חוזס, ההוכחה הזאת היא עדיפה. עכשיו, בואו נראה את הטייספס. האם כשטייספס אומרים, טייספס מדברים בחוצר, כיוון שלקח חוזס לא לזה ולא לזה, אז ממילא יש לנו, אפילו שנפל ברשות של אחד מהם, אנחנו יכולים להגיד שזה שייך לשניהם. משהו בטייספס שחוזס כן מועיל. השאלה אם זה נכון להוכיח כזה דבר. אז לכאורה, אני חושב שאולי אין מקום להוכיח מטייספס שטייספס סוברים כמו הראש. למה? כי טייספס מדברים כאן, בלי הדין של לפיכך. הרי כל המשנה אומרת שכיוון שאפשר להכריח את השני לבנות יחד איתך את הכויסל, לכן אנחנו יכולים להניח שהכויסל זה של שניהם, וטייסס שואלים, רגע, למה צריכים להגיע להוכחה הזאת כדי להגיד שהכויסל שייך לשניהם? גם בלי זה, זה שייך לשניהם מכוח הספק. אז זאת אומרת, אז טייסס לא משתמשים בספרה הזאת של החובה להכריח את השני כדי להוכיח שזה של שנינו. ויכול להיות שבמצב כזה, אז כן חוזס הייתה מועילה במצב שאי אפשר להוכיח, בהנחה של ההווה אמינא של טייסס. אז בתוך ההוכחה של טייסס, טייסס כן יכולים להשתמש בזה, כן מדלק החוזס לא לזה ולא לזה. אבל באמת, אחרי שטוסות מסבירים, שמתרצים על הקושייה שלהם, שכן צריכים להגיע ללפיכוך, שבגלל החיוב לבנות את הכויסל, הוא לא יכול לטעון שזה שלא מכוח הספק, בגלל שזה נשאר אצלו ברשות הרבה זמן, או משהו כזה, שזה המדובר, אז כבר אי אפשר להוכיח שבחוצה מועיל חזיס, כיוון שיש לנו כבר את הסברה שהוא יכל להכריח אותו. אז הסברה של להכריח את השני היא עדיפה מאשר החיוב לבנות את הכויסל. I think that we already can go back to English. Okay? But anyway, so you understood the proof? You're with me? That we can't now use Taisus as a proof like the Rosh. Because Taisus is only saying this in the method to prove that we don't really have to come on to the raya of the lefichach to say that they have to build it together. Taisus says even without that stage, Taisus can use the svara that a chazis would work because we don't have the proof of the lefichach. So I think that we see in Taisus something much clearer to be more like the Ramban than the Taisus. The interesting thing is I saw that the Shach on this din of the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Kuf Nun Zayin, he says that Shitas HaTaisvis is that Chazis works by a Chatzah. He brings a halacha, like the Rosh. And then, so now maybe we have a little question. How did the Shach see this in Taisvis? If Taisvis is only using this in his proof to get to his Yisoid of how do we know that the Lefichach is established on the possibility to force the other guy to build a wall. So that's a ha'ara that we have possibly on the Shach. Okay, so that's the Taisus of Lefichach. Now, I wanted to continue the discussion we had last week. The Gemara says, let's see the Gemara. The Gemara in the discussion of what's the pshat of shutim shiratzu lasis mechitza. The Gemara says, "Laman dama hezek riya shmei hezek." The mahalach of the Gemara is that we have to be talking about a chatzah she'ein ba din chalukah. It's less than, in other words, if they split it, it would come out less than arba ames for each one. And the pshat is kevan shenisratzu lachloik boinenes hakoisel be'emtza, right? Because they agreed upon the split. That's the basis of them building the wall because of hezek riya shmei hezek. So a lot of Rishonim ask a kasha, and we discussed this also previously. The Rishonim ask, since we're talking about a chatzah she'ein ba din chalukah, and it's based on the agreement to split up the field, perhaps the agreement was based on the fact that one of them agreed to this, provided that his kaisel is within his own boundaries. So if that's the case, right? So if that's the case, how do we know that it belongs to both of them? Perhaps the agreement to begin with was only based on the fact, let's say Reuven wanted Shimon to assist him in building the wall, and his Hezekiah, true this Hezekiah, they said, just a second, I'm only willing to divide our field. It's a field chatzah she'ein b'din chalukah, and since it's a chatzah she'ein b'din chalukah, they must have each other's consent to do this. So perhaps one of the shutfim only agreed to split the field if the other one would build the whole wall within his territory, and otherwise he's not going to agree on the divide of the field. Perhaps that's what the arrangement was to begin with. So how can we see that it belongs to both of them? That's the kasha of the Ramban and the Ran and the Rosh. Shita Mekubetzis brings it from Rishonim. That's the kasha. So how do we have this proof?
Well, maybe in that case, then you would need to have a chazis.
Boker Tov Shabi.
Okay,
In that case, you wouldn't need to have a chazis?
Maybe.
You mean maybe in that case, if they would do that, then the chazis would provide for a solution. But but the question is, if we had established that a chazis doesn't help in a chatzah, so it would be a dangerous thing to do. Unless you write on the chazis that it's a chatzah which is less than arba. Okay, but obviously it seems that we have a general takana. When can you use a chazis or not? And a chatzah, if we establish that we don't use a chazis, then it can't be used in this case either. It's deceiving, right? It wouldn't be a proof. So this is the kasha of the Rishonim. So it's interesting. There are two different Lashonis in the Rishonim to answer this question. Shabi anachnu nimsaim b'daf gimel. Anachnu b'daf gimel amud aleph. Regarding Hezekiah. So Ramban says that since this is what he says. Once we know that they agreed to split the field, so because of Hezekiah. So he says that the chiyuv kaisel, building a kaisel, is considered a vadai, because once we know that they split the field, we know that there's Hezekiah in the field, we know they have to build a kaisel. So there's a simple understanding of that is that the kaisel is an outcome of the chalukah. And therefore it's a vadai that it's done bein shnehem. And the fact that he maybe has proposed a solution in agreeing to this chalukah in a way that they will build, one of them will build a kaisel in his boundaries, the Ramban calls that a suffix. Because you're just proposing something which is against the vadai assumption. The assumption is that they both, when they did a chalukah, each one has a Hezekiah, they build a wall between them. So we have Hezekiah. And we have a svara that they build a kaisel together. You're coming up with a new svara and saying, just a second, maybe they only agreed provided that one of them builds a kaisel within his boundaries. So he says that's ein safek moitzi midei vada. That's the Ramban says. If you want to see the Shita Mekubetzis explains it a lot better. He explains that this is how it works. That the fact that you build a kaisel is based on a vadai situation. We can assume that. The assumption is that they built it together. That's called a vadai. To come up with a new possibility of how they may have got into this agreement, that's adding in new chashashas, new speculations here. That's a suffix, ein suffix moitzi midei vada. That's what the Ramban says. The Rosh says a little bit of a different lashon. He says, since mistama shneim nisratzu, so probably they did it in a way that there shouldn't be Hezekiah, and the assumption is that they did it between them without going into the point of suffix and avadai. He said there's a stum of the milsa. We'll see where this comes. Nagea, I think there's a difference between the way the Ramban says it and the Rosh says it. Now let's go. Last week we mentioned the Shitas HaRosh, altogether by Hezekiah. If somebody wants to build a mechitza within his own field, do it with Hutza V'Dafna, and by doing that, he's Mesalik to Hezekiah, he's allowed to do that. In other words, once the issue is dealing with Hezekiah, so one of the two partners could say, listen, let's forget about the Shutfas of the Kaisel. I want to put I'll take care of the whole thing, get rid of the Hezekiah by putting on a very thin wall, not like the wall of our Mishnah, of the Gazis and the Gvil, because that's only a solution when they're doing it together. Since now one of them would rather not pay for half of a wall of Gazis, which is expensive, it's a thick wall, he'd rather just pay a very thin wall of Hutza V'Dafna, and it's cheaper for him than for the other, than for being mishtata for the other guy. So he's, according to the Rosh, he's able to do that. So the Taz in the Shulchan Aruch, very close to that other Taz that we saw about chazis, he says, if that's the case, if the Rosh is right, why don't we? How do we say in the Mishnah that lefichachim nafal hakoisel hamakom vavanim shel shneihem? Why? Because the Chachamim were mechayev them to build it together. Who said? Who said that they both agreed to build the koisel in the middle? Perhaps we had a situation that one of them built the Hutzav Adafna, okay, based on the agreement the Rosh says is okay, and then the other guy who says, listen, I have the means to build gazis, and I wanted a good quality fence here. My neighbor is trying to cheap out, and he's doing the Hutzav Adafna. Okay, so he got out of his achrayas. I'm still not going to mimvata on my gazis that I'm building, right? So he went ahead and built a thick, 6 tefachim thick wall of gazis. That's what happened. That's definitely a possibility of a situation between neighbors. So the first Ruvain built his, like he looked in the Rosh and he says, I can do this. I can build a wall of Hutzav Adafna within my territory. And Shimon said, I want a good quality wall. This is not the Hutzav Adafna is not my style. So he put up a thick wall. Yes? Okay. Then in that case, the question is, now the Taz is asking, so how do we know that it belongs to both? This is a situation where only Shimon built the Gazis wall. If it falls down, it belongs only to Shimon. Since this is a possibility, how can we assume that we have a proof that it belongs to both together? So now, if we go with the approach of the Ramban says that the way we saw the Ramban, that there's a suffix and a vadai, right? So we can easily answer this question of the Taz, because it's not shver according to Ramban, because this is once again a similar situation. The fact that now we're dealing with a wall that fell down many years later, and we want to assume that they built it together because they had a shutfus and got the lefichach. The question was, who said only one of them? Who said they both built it together? Perhaps we have the situation that one started with Hutzav Adafna, and the other one built it to Gazis, and it belongs only to the other one. So for that, the Ramban Svar applies as well. Who said, why should we assume that there was a new situation here, and to be mefakbek, it's ain't safek ma'atzim v'dei vadai. So therefore, we would remain with the side that they would have to build it together. We still remain with the Eichacha of the Lefichach, according to Ramban. But the Rosh is mashma that he doesn't agree with he doesn't say it's ain't safek ma'atzim v'dei vadai. So according to him, the Rosh, and the Taz is asking the question dafka on the Rosh. It brings this din of Hutzav Adafna. So the question is, Lamaiso, so once they agreed that this is the way to take care of the Hezek Riyah, according to the Mandam Hezek Riyah Shmei Hezek, so we should therefore still assume that we took care of the issue of Hezek Riyah via the Hutzav Adafna. And you can still ask the question that we don't have the Eichach of the Lefichach now. Okay, so now I think the approach to this, to answer this question, based on other Rishonim, not the Ramban, would be how do we see the outcome of building the Kaisel based on the Hezek Riyah? According to the Mandam Hezek Riyah Shmei Hezek. The Gemara Namad Beis says the first kasha of the Gemara. The Gemara says, let's just see the lashon here. The Gemara says, "Boinen es hakoisel be'emtza, pshita. Avadi boinen koisel be'emtza. Leitzich the kodem chad v'ratya lechavrei. Mao the tema matzi amalei. Ki es ratzoi lecha. I only agreed to you ba'avira. V'tashmish to lo yis ratzoi. In other words, I only agreed to split in the shetach of the chatzah, but I didn't agree to the usage of taking up part of my property to build a wall. Kamash Malan, you can't make such a taina. The question is, what's the Havamina, what's the Salka Daitach to say that he would be believed on this Tanai not to make a wall? If they agreed to the division, simply they're mechuyev to build the wall as well. It goes together. It's part of the arrangement of dividing the partnership, is building the wall to prevent the hezek riyah according to the second shot. Okay, and also Lamaisa, the K'tzais HaChayshin says that you can actually use the svara of the Gemara Kiyis Ratzai Lecha to make the chalukah, but not to build the wall by a gina. By a gina, since the halacha is that in a gina, in a situation where you don't have kedei chalukah, and we're talking about a makam shenagu shaloi ligdar. Over there, it depends. By a gina, it depends on what the minhag of makam is. So the K'tzai says that he's believed to say that he only agreed to make the division on the property, but not to build the wall with him together. So now we could say that according to the Rosh, we know that the Rosh Shita is that you can have mechila. I want to just finish up this point. You could make mechila on the kaisel, on the hezek riyah. The Rosh holds that if somebody says, one of the neighbor, they agree to say, listen, we're moichel each other on the hezek riyah. I don't mind that you look into me and you don't mind to look into you. There's a mechila, and then he can't go and collect it afterwards and retract. That's the Rosh. Other Rishonim say no, mechila doesn't work. Ramban says mechila doesn't work on a kaisel, on the chiv of a kaisel.
Why?
Why? Because there's an ongoing nezek going on. The machlokes between the Rosh and the Ramban is that according to the Rosh, it's transferred into a chiv mammon. The fact that you have to build a wall based on the hezek riyah is now that we have an obligation, a monetary obligation here, and one is obligated to the other. So I could be meichel on that. Ramban says no. We have an ongoing nezek, and the fact that you're meichel doesn't prevent from the nezek that's going to. Tomorrow's nezek is a continuous nezek, and you can't be meichel on that. And therefore,
why can't he tell? I'll be meichel for every minute from now.
Right, because the Gemara says that even if you could be meichel on nezek that's going to happen now, but on future mazikin that will come and surface, you can't be meichel. So now the question is by shutfim that are dividing the property. So then you have a taina of hezek riyah that's only based after the chalukah. In other words, we can possibly split up the two and say that the chiyuv to build the wall is based on the chalukah sachatza, and you could have a chalukah that doesn't have hezek riyah, and then you could be mvata on that. In other words, now the question is, we want to say, is it possible? This is maybe the machlokes between Ramban and the Rosh. Can we split the two? According to Ramban, it all goes together. The hezek riyah is ongoing, and therefore, if I split the field between us, then you have an automatic hezek riyah. And then to say that the situation changed, ain't safek maitzim midei vadai. However, according to the Rosh, it became a new aspect of our monetary division here. Two parts. One is the field, and one is the usage of the field afterwards, based on preventing the hezek riyah. So that's two stages. And according to the Rosh, it's not because of ain't safek maitzim midei vadai. Each division has its own heskem. It could be included in the heskem. It could be not included in the heskem. And therefore, the Rosh says the question is, what's the hezek riyah doing over here? I still have to finish up this point through other makaris, but maybe we'll finish it the next time. And I hope by the next meeting will be in the next sugya as well. I think it is the Mishnah of Daf Gimel and Beis is a continuation of this Mishnah. I'm not saying that everybody should skip the Gemara in between, but I think there are a few sugyas that we can do a little quicker. So. And there's a point here in the next Mishnah that's very much connected to the issue of hezek riyah. I'm just going to point it out based on Rashi's pshat and the Rishonim. What's the pshat in the next Mishnah when you have a chatzah with a makif and a nikif, people are surrounding chatzah around one chatzah? Rashi learns that the issue of the Mishnah is an issue of hezek riyah. Okay, good to see you. Have a good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Okay, take care.
Sorry. Shabbos. Shabbos, good Shabbos.